The enemy showed his hand too early, and that wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning of his total collapse. Before you even opened your eyes this morning, before you knew there was a plot being hatched in the dark, before that heavy weight you've been carrying even had a name, I was already there. I saw the blueprint before it ever left the enemy's drafting table. I saw the architecture of the attack before the first brick was laid. And I took the reins before the first move was ever made against you, not after the damage was done, before. Stay with me until the end of this video, because before we're finished, you're going to know exactly what was rigged against you and exactly why it failed. Have you ever woken up in the dead of night without knowing why? The clock says 3 odd a.m. and the silence in the room feels different. It wasn't just ordinary insomnia. It wasn't just the leftovers of yesterday's stress keeping your brain wired. It was something your mind couldn't name, but your body felt with total clarity, a tension that didn't have an address, an alarm without a face, a kind of high-alert watchfulness that moved in without your permission. You tried to figure out where it was coming from. You replayed your day. You tried to label it. You closed your eyes again, but sleep didn't come back the same way. It was lighter, shallower, as if some part of you stayed on guard. And then there was that meeting. That one moment. You were in the middle of a sentence, building an idea that actually mattered, something with substance and logic, and someone cut you off. Not with a counter-argument, not with a legitimate question. It was an interruption designed to erase you. A forced silence, a subject change that was anything but subtle. You stopped mid-sentence. You scanned the room. You finished your thought another way, smaller, shorter, different than what you intended. Your original voice was swallowed up. You realized it wasn't the right time, but you carried it with you. You left with the feeling that something had been stolen from you in that room, and you hadn't been able to defend it. Or maybe it was that one comment. A sentence dropped quietly, in a perfectly natural tone, by someone you thought you knew. It wasn't a scream. There was no visible aggression. It was whispered, almost like a casual observation, framed as neutral or even tough love. But it stuck. It stuck for days.
You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.
Neutral or even tough love, but it stuck. It stuck for days. It stuck for weeks. You found yourself replaying it while you were driving to the grocery store, while you were doing chores, in the middle of completely unrelated tasks. Your brain kept searching for that sentence even when you weren't trying to think about it. A small phrase that grew massive on the inside, and you kept wondering if there was a grain of truth in it. If you had done something wrong. If there was a version of you that actually deserved what was said. And then the finances. The door that should have swung wide open stayed shut. You did everything right. You made the moves. You prayed. You prepared. And the breakthrough didn't come. You opened your banking app again, sitting on the edge of the tub where nobody could see you. The numbers were the same. Or worse. The silence on the other side of that door felt heavy. You didn't want to cry. But the exhaustion of not understanding why was heavier than the bills themselves. It didn't feel like failure. It felt like you were wrestling with something you couldn't see, like you were pushing against a wall that wasn't on the map. You didn't have a name for it, but you knew the weight by heart. It wasn't a lack of faith. It wasn't your mistake. It wasn't spiritual weakness. It was a battlefield you hadn't seen the full scope of yet. If this mirror has reached you today, hit the like button right now. That like is your public amen. Heaven records what you confess in the light. Before I reveal what was rigged against you, I need you to hear something. I put you here because this word is for you, not because of an algorithm, not by some digital fluke by choice, I took the reins the exact second that attack was activated, not after the damage was done, not when you finally realized you were in danger. Before you even knew you needed cover, the cover was already deployed. This video is going to give you 3 things. First, you're going to understand that what looked like random bad luck, a tough break, or inexplicable resistance actually had a source. It had architecture, it had an agent. Heaven has already named and dismantled the source. What you felt was real. What happened to you was real. And now, it has a name. Second, you're going to receive the sealing protocol. 3 steps to move out of the target frequency and into the coverage frequency. This isn't abstract theory. It's a practice that starts inside this video and ends with a declaration you will make out loud before you close this window. Third, before this video is over, you will be able to declare, "I know what was rigged and I know it has no more power over me." Not as a hope, as a fact. From unnamed harassment to an identified attack. From an unprotected target to being sealed by decree. From a spectator of the war to a witness of the turnaround, this is the direction we are headed. Now I need you to do something. Close your eyes for a moment. If you're driving, don't close them, but pull your focus inward. Take 1 deep breath and let it out slowly. What I'm about to show you doesn't work with divided attention. Every signal I'm going to name needs all of you to be recognized. There are signs that you were the target of an organized attack. This isn't poetic metaphor. This isn't symbolic language. These are physical, observable signs that you lived out in your body, your relationships, and your circumstances. Signs you called something else because the source wasn't visible yet. But the signs were real, and now I'm going to name them. The first sign: interrupted sleep at the exact same times, days in a row. You'd wake up not knowing why. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., the same time repeating like a pattern nobody programmed. You called it accumulated stress. You called it anxiety. You called it a rough patch, as if rough patches have the habit of setting an alarm for you every night. But what it actually was your spirit on high alert against a threat your conscious mind hadn't processed yet. The spirit perceives before the mind does. It functions before logic has words for what's happening. The alarm was active and working. You were waking up because something needed spiritual watchfulness, and your spirit was answering the call, even without a manual on what to do in that moment. The second sign: an inexplicable off feeling around certain people or in specific environments. You'd walk into a room and something shifted inside you, a discomfort that had no clear rational justification. Sometimes it was a specific person you normally got along with, but in certain moments, they triggered a sensation you couldn't describe. You called it a clash of personalities. You said you didn't have chemistry. You told yourself you were being difficult, too sensitive or dramatic over small things. But what it actually was discernment operating ahead of your awareness. It was your spiritual sensor responding to a presence or a dynamic that was aligned with the attack being built against you. You felt it because you were being protected from the inside. The discomfort wasn't the problem. It was data. The third sign: plans that collapsed at the 11th hour for no visible reason. An opportunity that was a sure thing and then vanished without a reasonable explanation. A meeting cancelled the night before due to a circumstance that made 0 sense. A path that seemed to slam shut suddenly without warning for a reason that didn't match the result. You called it bad luck. You called it bad timing. You said maybe it just wasn't meant to be. You started building a narrative about yourself based on doors that didn't open. But what was happening was protection disguised as frustration. The path that closed was the path that was rigged. There was something waiting for you in that direction that wasn't what you thought it was. God blocked it before the impact. What looked like a no was active coverage. The frustration was the shock absorber that prevented damage you never even knew was coming. The fourth sign: a sudden distance from people who used to talk about loyalty, partnership, and being there for you. Someone who was close suddenly became absent. No fight, no breakup talk, just a gradual growing silence. Texts took longer. Hangouts got spaced out. Words of encouragement were replaced by quiet. You called it life getting in the way. You said people have their own battles. You told yourself you expect too much from relationships. But what was happening was exposure. Heaven was moving the pieces to reveal the true alignment of everyone around you. Those who pulled away were the ones being used, consciously or not, as a channel for the attack. The distance was God's mercy, removing the instrument before it could cause more damage. The loss you felt was real, but what was removed wasn't what it seemed to be. The next sign is the hardest to hear. It's the one the enemy spent the most time trying to get you to ignore. It's the sign that, if you had recognized it sooner, would have changed how you interpreted everything else. The fifth sign, the feeling of being stuck exactly when you most wanted and needed to move forward. You prepared, you prayed, you studied, you moved in the right direction with everything you had, and you hit a resistance that had no natural explanation proportional to the effort you were putting in. You called it a lack of faith. You said you weren't ready yet. You thought you were missing something you couldn't see. You started looking for the mistake inside yourself, as if the resistance was proof of your failure. But it wasn't spiritual weakness. It was a deliberate blockade, a barrier installed by human hands and coordinated spiritual influences, specifically against what you carry and the destiny you represent. It wasn't a faith blockage. It was war. And against that organized blockade, heaven has already responded with an authority that ends the debate. If you recognized any of these signs, type free in the comments right now. This word has found you. Close your eyes for a second. Breathe. What I'm about to tell you doesn't work if your focus is split. There is a story in the book of Esther that needs to be told from the right angle. Because it's not just a romance. It's not just about a brave woman who saved her people, though that's true. It is, first and foremost, about a sophisticated attack against a man the enemy identified as a threat, and against whom a total apparatus of destruction was built. Haman didn't just wake up one day and decide to be cruel on a whim. He crafted a strategy. He identified Mordecai as his target with surgical precision. He built a gallows 75 feet high, so the execution would be public and final. He published a decree in the king's name against all of Mordecai's people. He moved the entire political, institutional, legal, and social machine at his disposal. The plan was sophisticated. It was comprehensive. It had layers, and it was almost complete the moment the reversal began. Mordecai had no way to dismantle it on his own. He didn't have direct access to the king. He didn't have institutional power equal to Haman. He didn't have the resources to fight the decree on the level it was issued. He had only one thing. He hadn't done what Haman demanded. He hadn't bowed. He hadn't folded. He hadn't negotiated his position to buy a temporary peace. He stayed standing exactly where he was. And then, the turnaround. It didn't come from a strategic defense. It didn't come from a clever counterattack. It came from God exposing the scheme at the exact moment in front of the only person who had the authority to undo it completely. The king couldn't sleep that night. The records were read out loud. Mordecai's name was there. And by the next morning, the very man who had built the gallows for his target was forced to parade his target through the city streets on horseback, proclaiming out loud the honor of the one he had tried to destroy. The gallows Haman built were used against him. You are Mordecai in this story. The attack was real. The enemy's planning was sophisticated. The structures mobilized against you were bigger than you could face alone. And it was the enemy's own plan that turned against him, because God stepped into the arena before the execution was finished. Now think about a sailor on the high seas who starts to feel the wind and the tide shifting direction. The boat starts moving on a route he didn't choose. He tries to fight the wheel and hits a force greater than himself. It feels like he's losing control. It feels like he's being swept out to nowhere, or worse, into danger. But what's actually happening is that the same force that feels against him is moving the boat away from a hidden reef he couldn't see from his angle. The wind that felt like an enemy was the hand of protection repositioning him before the impact. He wasn't adrift. He was being steered. The protection arrived before the impact in Esther's story. The protection arrived before the reef for the sailor. And the protection arrived before the damage became irreversible in your life. If you see yourself as Mordecai, type Mordecai in the comments now. If you see yourself as the sailor being repositioned, type Protected Navigator. Both are right because both describe the same reality from different angles. Let me stop for one full minute. You walked into this video carrying a weight that didn't have a name. You felt the attack without being able to identify the source. You woke up at 3 a.m. with an alarm your body registered, but your mind couldn't process. You were cut off at the wrong time, in the wrong room by the wrong person. You carried a small comment for weeks that grew massive on the inside. You sat in the bathroom with your finances open on your phone, alone with the weight of a closed door that made no sense. And now those facts have a shape. The attack was real. It wasn't your imagination. It wasn't spiritual fragility. It wasn't you being too sensitive to the normal ups and downs of life. It was a planned hit, with architecture, with an agent, with an identifiable intent. And that hit ran into an obstacle the enemy didn't calculate for. God was already inside the process before the process even started. God took the reins before the damage was irreversible. The window closed from the outside, not because you were fast enough, not because you prayed the right way at the right time, because he stepped in before you even perceived the danger. What looked like random harassment had a blueprint. And that blueprint was exposed by the same God who allows the attack only to reveal the enemy's hand and seal his defeat in the act of exposure. And here is who you are in the middle of all this. What you're about to hear isn't a human title. It isn't performance-based recognition. It's what I call you when I talk to heaven about you. Receive this with an open heart. Put your hand on your chest if you need to, because identity revealed in a time of war carries a different weight than identity received in a time of peace. You are a sealed target. The enemy identified you as a threat before you even knew what you were carrying, before you had full clarity on what you're holding, before you even recognized the weight and the scope of what was deposited in you. But the enemy saw it, and he attacked. This isn't evidence of unfair persecution looking for an explanation. It is evidence of what you carry and what you represent in the plan that is unfolding. I saw the target they painted on your back, and I saw what they were trying to intercept before it reached its destination. You were attacked because what is in you represents a real threat to what the enemy has built. Someone who carries nothing significant doesn't get this level of coordinated attention. The sophistication of the attack is indirect evidence of the value of the target. A sealed target is one whose protection was decreed by a higher authority before the threat even had time to execute. The decree didn't come after the danger. It came before. You were sealed before you knew you needed a seal. This authorizes you to permanently stop questioning if the resistance you felt was deserved. It wasn't deserved, but it was revealing. Every point of resistance proves the value of what is being protected. The war proves the territory. You are a witness to the exposure. You stayed on the field while the attack lasted. You didn't run when the weight got too heavy. You didn't surrender when the enemy's narrative about you started to sound convincing. You didn't abandon your post, even without fully understanding what was happening around you. You carried the weight of an invisible battle, without a full map, without seeing the whole battlefield, and you stayed standing when the option to cave was available every single day. I saw every morning you opened your eyes not wanting to face another day of the same thing. I saw every moment you almost gave in to the story the enemy was writing about you, the story that you were wrong, that you had failed, that there was something fundamentally broken about your situation. You didn't fold. You stayed. And what remains standing after the attack is what has been proven genuine. The fire didn't burn what was real. This authorizes you to declare that the trial is over. What survived the attack doesn't have to prove anything else. It has already been tested at the highest level available for this moment. What remained is what is real. You are a harbinger of the turnaround. The attack rigged against you is not going to end as a private episode locked inside your own borders. I see what is going to be born from this. What you lived through, what you carried, what you now understand about invisible attacks, about the signals the mind can't name but the spirit registers, about the protection that arrives before the impact, about how God enters the arena before the blow lands. This is going to become the testimony that sets others free who are going through the same thing right now and still don't have a name for what they're feeling. I see who is going to hear your story. I see who is going to be liberated by the clarity you are receiving in this moment. The attack that was rigged to destroy you is going to produce the authority you need to speak to those trapped in the same experience. You weren't just protected in this process, you were equipped. This authorizes you to stop treating what you lived through as an episode of shame to be hidden or minimized. It is a credential of authority to speak with precision and weight about what others still can't name. Now write in the comments the name of the identity that hit you the deepest. Sealed target, witness to the exposure, harbinger of the turnaround. Write the name you received. And if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. This won't be the last word you're going to need. It's time to receive the protocol. This protocol has a name. It's called the sealing protocol, the 3 steps of coverage. This isn't an emotional exercise designed to give you a quick, feel-good hit. This isn't a psychological technique repackaged in spiritual language. This is a closing procedure that works because it stems from an authority that isn't yours and isn't mine. It is the authority that has already been exercised over the attack, and these 3 steps bring you into conscious alignment with what has already been executed. Step 1. Name out loud what was rigged. Not in exhaustive detail that turns into a trauma review. Not as an accusation that feeds a cycle of anger. Name it with surgical precision and directness. Pull it out of the subconscious, where it operates like a fog, and give the attack a word so your spirit can release it. What has no name remains as a vague pressure. What has a name can be handed over to the one who has authority over it. You are going to say out loud, now or before the day is over, what was rigged against you. A direct sentence, no unnecessary fluff. This isn't reliving it. It's the act of closing the file. Step 2. Declare God's authority over the territory that was invaded. Don't ask for future protection as if you were still vulnerable. Don't beg for coverage that hasn't been granted yet. Recognize the protection already executed as an established fact. The declaration here isn't a request. It's a recognition. You declare that the territory where the attack operated is already under a higher jurisdiction. Past tense, not future. Done, not being done. Finished, not in process. Step 3. Close the frequency. 2 minutes of deliberate silence where no replay of the attack is allowed to enter. No reviewing the scene. No returning to the moment that hurt. No crafting the perfect comeback you should have said. Only one sustained image, God holding the reins. The reins of what was rigged against you. The reins of what could have hit you but didn't. The reins of what comes next. 2 minutes. Frequency closed by decree. The confirmation signal for this protocol isn't emotional euphoria. It isn't an intense relief that must be felt to be valid. It is stillness. The specific sensation that the matter has been closed by a higher authority, not resolved by your effort, not solved by your analysis. Closed by a decree that doesn't depend on your full understanding to be valid. If you are receiving this protocol, type received in the comments now. In the next 72 hours, 3 things will be launched against you, not as a maybe, as a procedural certainty. The enemy doesn't accept a closing without trying to reopen the door that was sealed. You need to know the names of the 3 tactics that will be used specifically against what you just received in this video. The first tactic is called perpetual review. It won't look like an attack. It will arrive disguised as intelligent vigilance and healthy processing. It will feel like you're being careful and responsible by reanalyzing what happened. It will sound like mature reasoning. I need to fully understand everything that happened before I can truly let it go. And you'll start repeating every scene in your head. The meeting where you were cut off. The comment that stuck for weeks. The banking app in the bathroom. The people pulling away. The stuckness that appeared every time you tried to move. You'll revisit it with more and more detail, as if the analysis is extra protection. It isn't. Infinite analysis is the precise mechanism that keeps the attack file running inside you. The enemy doesn't need the attack to keep happening externally. He just needs you to keep running the file internally. Do not enter that review. The closing you received doesn't need your total comprehension to be valid. The second tactic is called sympathetic victimization. It arrives disguised as genuine community and real support. It will look like a person who went through the same thing and wants to share the experience with you. It will sound like understanding, like being seen, like finally finding someone who gets it. But watch the direction of the conversation. If it leads toward the exit, toward freedom, toward what comes next, it's real community. If it leads toward keeping the collective pain file alive, repeating the scenes and amplifying the injustice without moving toward the door, it's a wound maintenance tactic. Company in pain is not a cure for pain. Recognize the difference between someone who wants to walk out of the experience with you and someone who wants to stay in it with you indefinitely. The third tactic is called the urgency to respond. This is the most sophisticated because it comes with more legitimate justification than the other two. It arrives disguised as a real sense of justice, moral responsibility, and spiritual courage. It will sound exactly like this. You can't just let this slide like it never happened. Someone needs to be held accountable. This can't stand. And it will create a mounting pressure for you to act against the aggressor before God acts. The problem isn't the sense of justice, that's legitimate. The problem is the timing. The gallows Haman built for Mordecai only worked against Haman because Mordecai didn't try to grab the rope first. He waited for the divine process to operate in order. The response that comes from heaven on heaven's timeline has a weight, an authority, and a permanence that your human response, even if absolutely justified, will never have in the same measure. Let the divine process finish its work. And then there is the internal enemy, the one that doesn't come from outside, the one that speaks using your own voice, your exact vocabulary, your own logic. It says calmly, you need to understand everything completely before you can let go with genuine conviction. You haven't processed enough yet. There are still unanswered questions that need answers first. Once you have total clarity on everything that happened, then you'll be ready to let go. This voice is sophisticated because it uses the language of emotional health and spiritual maturity to keep you trapped in infinite analysis instead of receiving the closure that has already been decreed. The closing doesn't depend on your total understanding of what happened. It depends only on your willingness to let go of what God has already taken out of your hands. Type "protected" in the comments right now. The decree has been sealed. Now I need you to do something physical before we move on. Put your hand on your chest. Feel your heart beating under your palm. Put both feet firmly on the ground so you can feel the contact. Close your eyes. This is a posture of receiving, not defending. The posture of someone who reached the end of a battle that was won before they even realized they were on the field. You are going to let go of 3 things right now. First, the name of whoever rigged or participated in the attack. You don't have to say it out loud if the room isn't private, but inside yourself pronounce the name or names clearly. You are releasing the person, not the fact. The fact was real, and the fact is recorded where records matter. The person was real, and they will be handled by the authority that has jurisdiction over the case. But the tether that the act created between you and them, the tether of attention, weight, and mental occupancy, that tether is being cut right now. You aren't approving of what they did. You aren't saying it didn't matter. You are stopping a person who attacked you from occupying space inside you they don't deserve to have. Second, the why me question. This question looks like a search for understanding, but it functions like a labyrinth. Why was I chosen as a target? What did I carry or do that attracted this? What is wrong with me that put me in this position? This question keeps you looking inward for a flaw instead of looking up toward the coverage that was already deployed. The answer to that question has already been given. You were attacked because what you carry is a threat to what the enemy is trying to keep intact. But the labyrinth of the question doesn't want that answer. It just wants to keep spinning. The question goes away now. The labyrinth is closed. Third, the weight of carrying alone what God had already taken from your hands. You were faithful. You carried what was in your reach to carry. You sustained what needed to be sustained while there was no clarity. But the total weight of the attack was bigger than you were meant to carry, and God had already taken the part that exceeded your strength before you even realized He was holding it. Now, you can drop the whole thing. Not because you finally get it all, because it was already taken by the one who has hands strong enough to hold what yours can't reach. And now, I'm speaking directly to you. I saw that night in the bathroom, the closed door, the phone screen lighting up the dark with numbers that wouldn't add up. The silence outside that door, heavy in a way that regular late-night silence isn't. Nobody knew you were there in that specific moment. Nobody knew the exact weight of that encounter, with a reality that seemed blocked by something you couldn't name. But I was there. I saw it. I know what it cost to sustain that in silence, without being able to explain it to anyone in a way that made sense, without having the words to say it wasn't just about the bills, that there was something bigger working against the flow that should have arrived but didn't. I saw the channel that was being used to block what belongs to you. And I closed that channel. What was being dammed up by someone else's hands, I removed from those hands. The financial territory that was invaded is being restored by an authority that doesn't negotiate and doesn't share what it has decreed. I saw the comment. I heard the exact sentence. I know how many times it replayed in your head without you trying to bring it up. I know how much a small phrase, said in a casual tone by someone you trusted, can occupy a space way bigger than its size because of who it came from. That voice was used as a deliberate instrument of an attack that had more layers and more intent than the words showed on the surface. But I took that instrument out of the hands of the one who used it. The sentence has lost the authority it seemed to have over you, and the voice that said it doesn't determine what you are. It never did. I determine what you are, and what I say about you is radically different in substance and in direction from what was whispered against you in that moment. I saw you on the field when you wanted to quit. I saw every morning your eyes opened with the weight of one more day of that pressure. I saw your faith working even on the days you didn't think it was. I saw you refuse to cave to the enemy's story, even without knowing what was at stake. I see what comes next, on the other side of what was rigged. What was built to destroy you is going to be the exact authority you will use to set others free who are still in it without a name for what's happening. What looked like the worst chapter is going to be the chapter others quote the most as the one that gave them a way out. I took the reins before you asked, before you realized the full extent of the danger, before the blow ever landed. The reins are in my hands, and what is in my hands does not fall. Now say it out loud before you write anything. Open your mouth and say it out loud right now. The attack was real, and God has already taken the reins. Say it again if you need to. Let that declaration leave your internal space and enter the air around you, because what is confessed out loud leaves the dimension of thought and enters the dimension of decree, and a decree carries a different weight than an intention. Type done in the comments now. The closing has been sealed. The decree has been recorded where records matter. Now think of one specific person you know who is going through an invisible attack and still doesn't have a name for it. Someone who wakes up with a weight they can't identify. Someone who had an opportunity vanish at the last second for no reason. Someone carrying a comment they can't shake. Someone who felt people pull away without a word. Send this video to that specific person right now before you close this window. Not to a group, to them. With a one-line message. I thought of you when I saw this. The next video continues this sequence of spiritual protection and coverage. Stay close because what comes next will finish what was started here. It is done. You are not the same person you were when this message began.
You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong. If you're being heard up above. If it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.